Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome or welcome back, as the case might be. My name is Dalibor Petrovic. I'm the founder of the Summit Leadership Alliance and your host to these TechTonic Conversations, a series of live webcasts we've been producing and putting on to bring to you conversations with exceptional technology leaders, tech founders, and subject matter experts around enterprise technologies. Today, we're having another live session. It's Monday, April the 14th, 2025. And I'm absolutely thrilled to welcome back one of the most experienced, sophisticated, impressive Canadian technology executives, Mark Goldberg. Mark, thank you very much for finding time to be with me and our audience today. It's a pleasure to have you back.
Thank you, Daliver. It's always a pleasure to connect with you. I really enjoy talking with you, and either virtually or in person.
Yes,
Thank
it's
you for
it's
having me.
it's a pleasure and a privilege, and I always pick up some gold nuggets from you, Mark. So thank you very much. Uh, Mark, as you know, this is a live conversation, but it is a conversation. We're going to touch on some interesting topics, mostly dealing with technology leadership. Pick your brain about your experiences. So I typically do not introduce my guests, but instead I prefer to just ask them to tell us their own stories in their own words. And for our audience that's following, if you have any questions, we are doing this live to give you an opportunity to submit a question. So please, using Q&A function, if you have anything that you'd like to ask me or Mark, please, I encourage you to do so. We'll do our best to pick up as many questions as we can. So, with that, Mark,
Mm. Thank
how
you.
about you
Thank you, Daliver. Yeah,
unpack your
sorry.
story a little bit, how you
Thank
navigated your
you.
life and career?
Thank you. And I'll just say, as an interviewer, I think that's a very smart way to do this. No, it's I've been very fortunate and blessed in my career. I in high school I was a computer nerd. Back in those days, the Apple personal computer was out. I had an Apple IIe early days and was in the computer club in high school, and then went to college and with a technology focus. And I was fortunate at the time. I was a lab sort of TA in the business school at George Washington University, and I met these two guys and who were starting a company back when the IBM PC was first coming out, and we were in Washington D.C. and the government was buying lots of IBM PCs, but you needed word processing, you needed a modem, you needed additional memory and video cards. You needed add-on things, and so the company, um, we were the distributor for those types of add-on products. From there, had the opportunity to work at Catholic University and Georgetown University in IT leadership roles. I was the first ever CIO hired at Goodwill. And if you don't know much
Wow.
about Goodwill, yeah, they're a very large, successful nonprofit, but with a focus around helping people get employed. Their purpose is around the power of work, and they generate a lot of revenue to be able to serve people in that way. After Goodwill, I had the opportunity to live in London for 5 years, and I started a couple companies. I did some consulting, had a really great time in London, and then moved back to the States. And one of the companies I did some consulting for in London had acquired a ski resort company in Vancouver, Canada. So 16 years ago, just this past month, arrived to be the CIO of a company called Interwest. They had a whole lot of ski resorts and a few other sort of beach resorts in the portfolio, and had a really good time working for Interwest. Um, as sometimes happens, met a girl, got married, and
Yep.
now Vancouver is home. Love Vancouver, and and in Vancouver over the last 16 years after Interwest, I've had some really great opportunities as well. A mining company, Tech Resources, heavy equipment, Finning, which is
Yes.
one of Caterpillar's large distributor and
Distributors. Yes.
so yeah,
Yes.
supplier, and did some consulting for Saks Underwear, Vancouver, based company, Rocky Mountaineer, which is
Oh,
a
yeah.
fantastic train trip from Vancouver to Banff and Jasper. Had spent a number of years at Hootsuite. Had a great time there. The people and the culture. Most all of these organizations have really been fortunate to work with great people and get to work on really interesting and cool technology. And then just a little over 2 years ago, had the opportunity to join the executive team at BCLC.
At BCLC. Fantastic.
BC Lottery Corporation. Yes.
BC, yeah, BC Lottery Corporation. Yeah, that's important. Not
Yes.
liquor,
Yes.
lottery
No.
corporation.
Sometimes when you say BCLC, sometimes people may think we're in the liquor business. No, it's
Yeah, yeah.
lottery, and it's not just lottery, by the way. It is lottery, it is online casino and iGaming, it's brick and mortar in casinos, it's sports betting. We offer entertainment across all those channels.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Excellent, excellent. Well, thank you very much, Mark. And certainly, what an impressive career that touches so many different industries, and in your case, different roles, but all with a common theme around technology and tech leadership, right? So,
Yes. Yes.
so if I might ask, as you reflect now on this career, that if I'm counting right, you mentioned you started after university in Washington with distribution of PC peripherals and equipment. This must be 80s, right?
This was
Mid
the early 80s. Like,
80s,
yeah.
right?
Early,
So a
yeah.
career that spans now 4 decades plus. Uh,
Yes.
I would love to get your thoughts about, like, has there been any pivotal moment that perhaps has shaped your approach to leadership?
There's been a few. That's a really good question, but I'll say a couple that really stand out for me. One is, as I mentioned, first ever CIO hired to be the technology leader at Goodwill, and at
Yeah,
the time had been around almost 100 years and very successful. I think at the time over 3,000 retail outlets across the U.S., and I think they had a handful in Canada. And at that time, this was now, in the sort of in the 90s. eBay was on fire. Like there wasn't Facebook Marketplace or other venues,
yes.
but eBay was the place to go to sell and to buy in an online auction site products. And for Goodwill, lots of people donate valuable collectibles along with clothing and other things. But in their donations, there are things that are valuable.
Yeah.
But what's valuable in a storefront in a small town in the U.S. versus being a storefront to the entire, let's say, globe,
Yeah.
the selling price of that product becomes
Vastly
higher.
different.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
yes, exactly. And so worked with a group of people to say, you know what, this would be a great way to use technology to do that. And we created shopgoodwill.com and was incredibly successful sort of out of the gate. But, there were not a lot, there were people who had been with Goodwill for a long time. And I'll just say generally, change is hard. Like as human beings, we do struggle with change. And we really had to work to convince people that there was value in doing this, that the benefits would be for our customers as well as for the organization. Um, and we were able to do that, but we had to bring people along. So that was for me the reminder that the technology, got to get the technology right, but you got to bring people along on the journey, the what's in it for them, what's in it for the organization, and really apply good change management, like even before you start a project or a program, like right out of just as are coming into planning, like what's our change management plan?
Yeah,
How are
yeah.
we going to get people to understand?
To understand and understand and to
And,
behave and do
yeah.
it willingly, by on their own. Like so, the picture has to be superbly compelling. I love the story. So
Mm,
so
mm.
so 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 this, of course, translated into, I'm going to assume, unusually wonderful new source of revenue for Goodwill.
But it was entirely new. Again, many, many years, decades of brick and mortar shops. And this was a very different concept. And, again, kudos to, at the time, the board, the executives to get behind this and support the not, the moving from concept to putting this into place. And as I said, the benefits to the organization and to customers buying from Goodwill, win all the way around.
Wonderful, wonderful. That's actually quite a phenomenal story. So now, Mark, you are the CIO at BCLC, the British Columbia Lottery Corporation. It's a government agency, so it's once removed from the government, but still in Canadian context fits into a public sector, public service. Would you mind for our audience just describing a little bit about what BCLC does, what kind of technology strategies you are pursuing, perhaps what are the challenges you are facing in that role with BCLC, how you're addressing them?
Yeah, again, good question. You always have great questions, Salabor. It's we we provide entertainment services to the folks who live and visit British Columbia, and with that, we generate a significant amount of revenue. And then what we do is after our costs, our net income goes back to the province. So, I'd say, before the cost of technology and other things have gone up over the last while, we were giving back 60 cents on every dollar back to British Columbia. And that would go to healthcare, education, community services. It really, I'm going to say, for me, it feels really good, not just for me, but for folks in the organization to know that what we do really does good things back into across BC.
Fantastic.
Um, so so we've got to ensure that what we're offering in that entertainment is really good. So if you look at iGaming, and playnow.com is our online iGaming site where you can online gamble.
Yep.
You can, in terms of what we call iCasino, iGambling, you can place sports bets. Um, you can even buy lottery tickets online digitally. That has to be really good. And we've got some technology that is getting a little bit aging, is
Mhm.
aged, and we've been working in the 2+ years that I've been there. We've been working hard to migrate to modern technology that's going to take us into the future. So, today, playnow.com is what it is. And in the next, 12, 18 months, it's going to look and feel and engage people in a far better way than we are today. This past year, we did a whole transformation of our lottery system.
Mm.
Again, moving from on-prem sort of legacy technology to cloud-based technologies, and that unlocks the ability for us to deliver just the very best player experience we can offer.
What a phenomenal vantage point actually to be in. To be This is a forefront of digital gaming, digital gambling, digital betting. This is must be fascinating, just to experience, just to see, just to know what's going on in this field, let alone to be in a driver's chair making choices and helping the organization actually succeed through that. That's very, very fantastic. Thank you very
It,
much for
it
sharing.
it is really exciting. Not to ignore. I mean, we have 38 casinos across brick and mortar casinos across the province. So also, how do we continue to enhance that experience when you're in our casinos? And
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
yeah, and the combination of in the casino that has a restaurant and other food and beverage and other entertainment there. It's bringing all of that together from a player experience that is the very best that we can offer. We want a
Oh,
experience for all of our players, no matter where they're engaging with us.
fantastic, fantastic. So, Mark, given that this conversation, our conversation, is intended to discuss sort of tech leadership, lessons learned, attributes, I would like to ask you. We just established you have 4 decades of
Mm.
career that is on at a with technology leadership at the center or adjacency. How have you observed the evolution of a role of a tech executive over the last number of decades? And where do you feel the role is heading? What would be the essential skills and attributes that tech executives of today and tomorrow need to have in that evolution of the role?
Yeah, no, thank you. And a good reminder that I'm not as young as I used to be. That's it's been a long time. I've learned a lot, and there have been some really great mentors and leaders that I've watched and learned from. For me, and over the last while and going into the future, as a technology leader, you really have to be an excellent listener and get curious. I find if I if I react quickly, and I'll say, me included, in technology, we like to jump to the solution.
Yeah,
And if we can avoid that and really step back and look at what we're trying to achieve from business outcomes, business objectives, that really is the key. I think there are lots of successful CIOs out there who have come from, let's say, more of a business career. And
yeah.
I think that that's excellent. And, I was sort of technology, but in business starting early in my career. So, for me, I talked earlier about, people and change management and shifting people's mindsets and behaviors. You've got to listen, you got to get curious and collaborate on what are we trying to achieve in terms of, like I said, business outcomes, and then how do we apply the right and appropriate technology to get there, and then how do we bring people along all on that journey, on all of the steps to get to, let's say the finish line, or, in a lot of these cases, it's never even a finish line, but it's,
Yeah.
continuous improvement. But it's always, listening and being curious and bringing thought leadership in a sort of in a collaborative way, not the, I got all the answers and the technology's just gonna, solve
I love
solve
how you're
solve
describing
everything.
this. So all the attributes that you are calling out, none of them are knowledge of technology yet. And then you mentioned, of course, and then technology. But
Thank
well, I think this is
and
right on. So the first thing that you mentioned is active listening and listening to understand, listening not to jump the gun, I guess. So listening to understand and curiosity.
yes,
So to
yes,
me, this is like a dance, being curious and active, being able to activate yourself, but being patient and wise, not to jump the gun. So listening to understand, introducing that curiosity, those are the two main things that you mentioned. And then you said, and oh, by the way, ability to understand people, to connect people, to influence people, to motivate people. So really, you're combining listening to understand with curiosity, and then the magic, the art of navigating humans, right?
and 100%. And the other piece I didn't mention, but a given, I guess, is and surround yourself, like build a strong technology leadership team, I can't do what these amazing people do. But what I can do is, really build and develop a strong leadership team who can then execute and deliver on what we just talked about. But you can't get to that
Yeah.
delivery and execution if you don't do the things we just talked about.
Yeah. So therefore, what we are effectively saying is that the game now is different from the way it was 10 years ago,
Mhm.
15 years ago, 20 years ago. How would you define success um, in a role of a technology executive today? And perhaps how do you experience that that definition may have changed over time?
Yeah. Back earlier in my career, we would sort of talk about KPIs. We would talk about, measures of success. And I am absolutely a data-driven person. And I want to see the data and the numbers that really, shows us that we're successful or we're not successful.
Yeah.
And I think for the last while, as a technology leader, you are, you know, part of those business conversations that define what good or great looks like. And you put some specific measurements behind that. It's not just, okay, we're going to deliver on time and on budget. Those are really important. But what are the outcomes that we're expecting? Why are we doing this? Back to change management. We're gonna implement a significant change, transform, but you're not doing that for the sake of change, right? You're doing that for specific business outcomes and
Yeah, yeah.
objectives. And we need to measure that. So once we deliver, we've got, let's say, the new technology, new platform in place. We should, we continue to measure how are we doing against what we said we would achieve in terms of ROI and other KPIs. And that was not the case, let's say, early in my career. But for the last while, if part of success, a big part of success has been how well are we achieving what we said we would
the
achieve
the
and
overarching
measuring it.
overarching object. So to me, as you're describing, what sort of how I am interpreting what you're saying is that sure, the measures of success, tactical measures of success, KPIs, have been there, and they continue to be present today. But the way to think about what really matters is to lift your head up and see the organizational overarching business objectives and start measuring them. Kind of,
Have to
are we
be.
moving the actual organizational needle forward?
Have to be. And the last look at the last, 4+ years. It's been really challenging in the business and economic environment. We went into, a pandemic and nobody understood really what that looked like. What was that, sort of in March when
Mhm.
it
Yeah,
first
March
hit. And
2020. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. And we sent people home and we thought we'd be back in the office in what, a month, a couple months.
a couple of
And
weeks, perhaps.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And the world changed, and we weathered that. We came through that. I mean, it was really challenging for BCLC. We had to shut down all of our casinos, and we didn't lay off a single person. It was challenging, and we came through that. And I would say many organizations are probably came through that stronger than where they
Yeah.
were before. I would say, for us, BCLC is. And then, the last while with inflation and the cost of things being more expensive, the economy is really challenging. So if you are not moving the needle at that sort of
Top level.
really, yeah, absolutely. You're gonna you're gonna struggle,
Yeah.
and if in order to be successful, you got to be moving the needle there. And as the IT leader, you got to be part of those conversations, part of setting those measures, And as I said, continue to measure what we said we would do after we've delivered
Yeah,
and
I think
holding
that
ourselves accountable.
yeah, I think that what you mentioned, I think, is really, really important. People may, I don't know, intuitively understand this, but I want to call this out. Pandemic, I think, demonstrated to everybody, how essential technology actually is for the just survival of every single business, whether nonprofit or for profit, large or small. So that I think gave permission of to technology executives. They give them permission and welcome into the boardroom as a peer contributor, peer business leader. And to me, that is the opportunity that presents itself. Now it's up to the executive themselves. Are they going to be able to take that opportunity and convert it into a truly strategic impact? And the thing that what you're describing is how that actually works in real life, where you are taking on the ambitions of the whole organization, and as a peer leader moving the agenda forward. Your mandate happens to be technology, right? But it's a senior leadership executive opportunity. And I I think that's exactly right on. That's the future for the
Yeah,
technology executive.
you said it better than I did, as you always do, but
Well, I'm
exactly right.
some I'm just trying to extract and summarize the brilliance of what you're mentioning. So
Mhm.
thank you for
Thank you.
that. Uh, you were mentioning, well, obviously over your career, so many different interesting projects. If I was to ask you to think about the most challenging one,
Mhm.
what would be the most challenging project that you were involved with, and maybe what were the lessons you learned?
Again, there are a few through my career. One that stands out for me. I arrived at BCLC, as I said, just over 2 years ago,
Yeah.
and the project to transform our entire lottery system had been going on for a number of years before I arrived. And you know, people were frustrated. We got to get this done. It's going to be so meaningful for our, lottery customers, for the organization. And it took me, once I, got settled in, it took me a while to sort of really understand, okay, where are the challenges? Where are we getting hung up? And how do we unblock those? And how do we deliver? And really put focus and prioritize the things that we needed to get done. And so I arrived in late January 2023. By the time we got late into the year, we had a really good idea of we had a what we got done, what we unblocked, and how we and when we were going to deliver. And we set a date of late May of 2024, and we nailed it. And it showed, and it was cross-functional. It was technology people, operations people, vendors, and we were moving from on-prem to the cloud. And so a lot of complexity, including with our lottery retailers. We've got over 3,000 retailers across BC, and
3,000.
these 3,000. So groceries, large grocery store chains, gas stations,
Yeah.
smaller mom and pop. Like we put in a whole new platform, all new terminals, and really changed the world of all of these people. So we did a huge amount of training and change management to prepare them for what happened over a weekend. So unplug the old terminal, plug in the new terminal, all new software, almost like going from DOS to Windows 11.
Wow.
Major transformation. And so incredibly challenging because of the complexity that I described and all of the different stakeholders. And as you mentioned, we are a crown corporation, so we've got government oversight and
Yeah.
regulatory things that we have to ensure we're compliant with. And all of that happened over a weekend. Like, yeah, incredible success story, but very, like I said, one of the most challenging programs projects, deliveries that I've been a part of.
Yeah. Very, very impressive, especially that last statement that everything worked. That
Mm. Yeah.
when everybody got connected and turned it on, it worked.
Mm.
And
Yes.
so, Mark, if you were to reflect on that experience, like what, like what was the secret sauce? Like
Mm.
what were the lessons that you take away of, this is what we done right. These are these. If I was to redo this, this is what I would do. Same, and maybe are there certain things that you would do differently?
But definitely, I think with every project or program, there are lessons learned, and certainly with this, and there were post go live, there were bumps that we worked through, like I would say all projects, but how you respond and deal with those. So our partner in this is based in Athens, Greece, and the time difference between Vancouver and Athens, 9 hours. So we had to figure out a way to work together remotely,
Hmm.
but at the same time. And so we brought people in from Athens to Vancouver and Kamloops. We had people sitting, our BCLC employees sitting in Athens, working side by side together. It really was an example of strong collaboration, um, and just working together to overcome problems. And in that time from when I arrived to go live, we had quite a number, lots of things, small and large challenges that we had to overcome. But we did it in strong collaboration with our partner and our people. And as I mentioned, the change management, really spending the time to train and get our stakeholders, the retailers, our staff, our partner staff, all just rowing together, and spending the time to do that was really worth it up front, so that on the Monday morning when people were buying, or even in our case on Sunday, people started buying lottery tickets on new terminals with retailers, on a whole new platform. um, it worked really well. There were there were some issues, but overall, people said this was a
Well,
huge success.
this is like for your business, this was open heart surgery, I guess.
It was very much so. That's a good analogy. And we had actually said, worst case scenario, we could be down for a while in terms of not able to sell lottery tickets, and that was
Not
absolutely not the case.
not
Exactly.
okay. Yeah, the
Yeah.
open heart transplant, actually, the transplant surgery. Wow.
The patient, the heart was beating, the patient was they were breathing, and blood was pumping, as we planned.
That's fantastic. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Obviously, well, obviously, as I'm listening to you, you are clearly highlighting the importance of people in every domain of what you're doing. Uh, so I would love to get your thoughts on how do you foster a culture of innovation, especially in the environment where teams might be reluctant to change. How do
Yeah.
you do that?
Yeah, it's not easy.
Yeah.
For me, the license to innovate comes from the day-to-day operation, lights on, engines running. That just needs to work. Like,
That's
if you're
yeah,
focused on innovation and what's going to come, but day to day is not delivering the experiences to customers, um, that's not a scenario that works or is sustainable.
yeah.
So step one is ensure that your day-to-day operations, lights on, things are running. And then you've got to be thinking about the future, looking at what's either working well that we can enhance, or what's not working well that we have to pivot from, have to modernize. That will drive innovation. And you want to not get caught up, because I can do this too. You can get caught up in new technologies and shiny objects, and that hype cycle. We can get drawn to that, and you've got to keep an eye on that. AI is an excellent example. We've been using computational AI for a bunch of years, far before generative AI. And
Yeah.
then, ChatGPT, generative AI comes out, and people get really excited about it, including me. But you can jump too quickly before you really understand where's my best bang for the buck. So having people on your team who are thinking about, okay, what are we missing today? What do we need to achieve from from business outcomes, business objectives, and what's the right and appropriate technology roadmap to get us there? So it's, again, as I said earlier, it is not IT sort of in a vacuum. It is truly those conversations across the business, and where's this new technology really going to get us from where we are today and to where we need to get to
Yeah.
in the future. So it really is sort of having multiple languages, multiple lanes, to be able to ensure your business is running as optimally as possible. And then what are the innovations that are going to take us into the future, and how do we do both?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Uh, you also mentioned the importance of surrounding yourself with the right technology, with the right team of people that can deliver on your mandate, vision, ambition, strategy. And I'm sure the same applies for them. That so there is a cascade of right people that need to be in the structure to actually collectively achieve the objectives. I would be curious to get your thoughts on what advice would you give to someone who is, looking into a career in tech leadership, who wants to do what you do? What would be
Hmm.
your advice to them?
Good question. There are couple a couple pieces to that question. One is sort of tapping back into the people and the listening skills. Um, I would say lean into every situation with curiosity,
Hmm.
and spend the time to unpack it with your stakeholders. So, technology, I love technology. It's a lot of fun. I love using technology to create and enable either amazing experiences for customers, amazing experiences for employees. It is a lot of fun. But you can't just do technology for the sake of technology. You really have to understand, what are we looking and expecting, wanting to achieve? And that requires really strong listening and understanding, and then communication.
Okay.
Um, Dalibor, you're an amazing storyteller, and I know you've had some guests on who are also amazing storytelling tellers. And as a technology leader, the better you can tell the story, paint the picture, you know, really convey what the journey can be, really important. Those are the things that I would really emphasize. Um, Technology, as I said, is fun. It is complicated, but we don't, as technologists, we don't do this in the silo. We do this with people, and really focus on the people side. If you're curious and you're asking questions, understand, what are the things that could get in the way of success. So, we talk about people, process, and technology. Like, what, from a process standpoint, is either getting in the way or has an opportunity to be streamlined or optimized? Just be curious.
I can, yeah, I cannot, I think, emphasize enough the importance of these two attributes that you are highlighting throughout this conversation. Be curious, and I'm going to say be genuinely curious. Like, seek to understand and be an active listener to help you really sort of achieve that deep understanding. And once you have deep understanding, then everything else actually becomes easier, clearer, gives you more confidence because you know. And so this is an interesting an interesting advice, because I'm asking, what is the advice to technology leaders of tomorrow, right? It's counterintuitive, but I think it's correct.
It absolutely. And again, the other piece I add is the communication, the storytelling, the
So, yeah.
ability to do all of that, understand it, and then convey it and communicate it so people understand it, understand what's in it for them, understand what's in it for the organization, for your customers, like really conveying what what we're doing and why we're doing it.
And here is, I think, an interesting add-on to this. I agree. So storytelling, super powerful. And I think the masters of storytelling can understand the audience really well and can adjust the story to resonate to that audience effectively. The
That's
depth,
a
the
really good point.
detail.
Know your audience. Yeah. Sorry, a really
Yes.
good point. Know your audience. Yeah. Because for me, I've got board of directors, I've got my peers on the executive team, I've got, the what we call the BT organization, the business
Yeah.
technology organization, and across the entire organization of BCLC, you know, different audiences and really understanding your audience and conveying in a
Yeah.
way that's going to resonate and land in the right way for them.
And you might even have different languages developed, different, different language developed to
Mm,
articulate and tell the same story to different audience groups.
mm.
And if you are successful in figuring that out, I think you are miles,
That's
miles ahead.
that is a really great ad and really
Yeah.
great point. Yeah.
So thank you very much for sharing this, Mark, the advice to put your future technology leaders, what they should be focusing on. I would love to ask as a final question, we are approaching our time. Knowing what you know, all of
Mhm.
this experience cumulated, what would be your advice to your younger self?
I, in my younger self, in my early career, I was not a good listener. I did not get curious. I enjoyed designing, engineering, like coming up with the solution
Yeah,
as quickly as possible. And I've learned that over the years that
yeah,
that is not the way to approach any of this.
yeah.
And you lead from understanding, you know, like I said, business objectives, business outcomes. Technology is complex, but in the list of things, it is further down the list of the complicated stuff you got to get done. And we talked a lot about people. We talked about process or process. I'm from the States. I say both. And holding myself and holding ourselves accountable on what we're doing. In technology, things will come up and things will potentially take longer than we want or than we expect. And how we hold ourselves accountable to actually meet deadlines, deliver on time and on budget. Those are important, but communicate up to your either up or out to stakeholders and let people know early if we've run into a problem and it's going to delay things. The sooner you communicate that, the better people will understand. Keep people focused on what we're doing and why we're doing it. And I talked about that lottery transformation program. It was years late,
Yeah.
but people don't focus on that. Really, we delivered that that project and all of that really successfully, and people remember that.
Yeah.
Yes, there are conversations that we have and say, yeah, that it would have been great if that had taken several years less time to deliver it. We can't change that, but we can focus on what we did achieve successfully and learn from it. So the next time we do a really large transformation, we're going to be that much better. That's
And
what I
that
would tell my younger self in
your
my
younger
career.
self. And
Mm.
the way I would try to sort of summarize it is you suspend your desire to solve and amplify your intent to understand,
Well said.
right?
Well,
Yeah.
well said. Well
Thank you,
said.
Mark. This
Mm,
was fantastic. I knew this was going to be
mm,
exciting
mm,
and with a lot of golden nuggets, and you
mm.
certainly did not disappoint. So thank you very much,
Thank you.
Mark. For
Thank you.
our audience members, the session has been recorded. We'll soon post it on TechTonic Conversations. If you enjoy this content, please consider liking and subscribing. It'll help me spread the word, and then you will get notified as soon as I post new content. With that, just a quick reminder, tomorrow we'll unpack Deloitte's 2025 tech trend around leveraging AI to modernize core back-end systems. That'll be fascinating.
Mm.
So I will invite everybody who might be listening to register for that session tomorrow at noon Eastern. And with that, Mark, thank you so very much. Have yourself a lovely Monday. It's been a pleasure.
Now, Delaware, thank you for having me. I really always enjoy our conversations. Thank you.
All the way.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.